Well, hello there, Dr. Dell here again, answering some questions I've been asked. And this is going to be question number 9. I'm getting a little hoarse here today. Okay, here's question 9. It says, you emphasize the importance of math in solving real-world problems. Can you give examples of how your programs equip students or professionals to apply math in practical, impactful ways? Well, if you want this to be a 3-hour video, I can give lots and lots of examples, but let me just give a few. I'll start off with myself personally. I was fortunate, thanks to my Uncle Jack Davis and then later Miss O'Hare and Dr. Gass, to learn practical math when I was in school. And I tell that story elsewhere. And when I was 17 years old, I was in school, I was in college, but that summer I got a job on the Pennsylvania Railroad as a carpenter's helper. The reason I got the job is it had some floods. Then I went up and interviewed with them looking for a part-time summer job. And they said, can you read blueprints? Well, I really didn't know what blueprints were, but I kind of had an idea. And oh, sure. So I went in, and because of practical math, I could tell things under a blueprint. I could do calculations and a few things. And, oh, you can read a blueprint. They hired me. They paid me 1957. They paid me $1.94.2 per hour. Some things you don't ever forget. That's about $20 an hour in today's dollars, which is way more than I'd ever been paid per hour. It was a wonderful job, and I probably saved them a lot more than they paid me, because that summer I solved some problems for them that they couldn't solve, the carpenters couldn't, practical problems that saved them a lot of money. One example, when I was a carpenter named Bill, I was a helper, and we built some forms to pour in some concrete to put a motor on. And we built the forms, and then he sat down, he was calculating, and finally he said, well, he said, I'm going to call the cement truck and have him bring the cement. I said, what are you talking about, Bill? A cement truck? He said, yeah. I said, why? He said, we need 8 yards of cement. Now, 8 yards is a lot of cement. And I knew, just looking at it right off the top of my head, that was not right. So I said, wait a minute, Bill, let me do a little figuring here for you. And I calculated, and what we really needed was about a half a yard, maybe 2/3 of a yard. The reason is he didn't know how to calculate it. He didn't know practical math. And I did. Oh, he said, thank you, Craig. We mixed it up by hand, filled the forms up. Took us a couple hours. We got done. I said, Bill, I said, what would have happened if you'd have had that cement truck come out? Well, he said they would have filled up these forms, and then the rest of it, they'd have just poured on the ground. And we'd have had to wait till it got hard, and then we'd have to take sledgehammers and break it up, carry it off. I suspect it had happened to him before. And do you know what that would have cost? Labor-wise, to do that? I probably darn near paid for my summer just with that. And there were some other examples I won't get into that I did that summer. Well, practical math has empowered me to do many things. I'll start with a few of my own things that I did. I got a PhD in theoretical math, and I was teaching theoretical math at Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology, engineering school in Terre Haute, Indiana. But my brother, who never went to college, 5 years younger than me, was working in the automotive parts business at Martin Ford in Indianapolis. He came to me and said, Craig, if we could buy a parts store, I think we could both, I can make more money and you can make some money. But he said, I don't know how to do it. Well, long story short, I applied some practical math, and I ended up, we did what's called a leverage buyout, 2 big parts stores in Terre Haute. And overnight, 6 months time, we went from being worth $20,000 to $600,000. Today, that'd be we were millionaires, just because of practical math. Then I wanted to build a drag strip, an 1/8 mile drag strip. And so we built the best 1/8 mile drag strip in the United States in Action Dragway in Terre Haute. And again, it was practical math that let me do it. And I could give you all kinds of examples of what I applied to practical math to, but it's just practical math. How long is something? What's the volume? What's the area? What are some angles? We weren't good business managers. Just because you know practical math doesn't mean you're a good business manager. And both those businesses failed financially. They were great for successes for a while. We made a lot of money, then we lost it. Then I formed a racing gasoline company. Again, a lot of practical math involved, and that actually didn't fail. That got stolen from me. Then in the mid 70s, when the microprocessors came out, I decided to build a computer. I call it the Dynabrain to monitor racing engines being tested on dynamometers, water brake dynamometers. Again, practical math let me do that. And the Dynabrain turned out to be a great success, particularly NASCAR teams. My number one customer was Australian Racing in Charlotte, North Carolina. And you probably never heard of Australian Racing. Roland Wolotka was the general manager. They had a racer named Dave Marcus you've never heard of. But one day I'm out back talking to Roland, and I said, I hear you fired Dave Marcus. You got to get a new driver. Yeah, we got to get a new driver. Said he's a wild guy and nobody else will hire him, and he's a little bit older, but we think he might. He says, we've got the best racing engines because of your Dynabrain of any other NASCAR team. And he said, so I told Dale, I'm going to give him the best car. Now, can he be the best driver? And then there's this guy in the background, a little motorcycle. He said, that's our new driver. He waved him up front, came up. He said, Dale, I want you to meet Craig Hayne. He's the guy that's got the Dynabrain. And he said, that's why our racing engines are better than everybody else's. And you're going to have the best racing engine. Craig, I want you to meet our new driver, Dale Earnhardt. I met Dale before he ran his first NASCAR race. And then the next year he ran Rookie of the Year. Then he ran Grand National Champion. I thought I was going to make a fortune with the Dynabrain. I went to produce it then. I had other NASCAR companies. I knew all the NASCAR guys. I knew Dale Earnhardt. I knew Richard Petty and Cale Yarborough and all those guys and their engine builders. Intel quit making the microprocessor that went into the Intel 4040. Couldn't produce it. So what am I going to do? Well, I went back and I taught electronics at Indiana State University for 1 year, practical technology. And I realized that we weren't teaching the technicians certain things they needed to know. In particular, we weren't teaching them how to troubleshoot op-amp circuit, operational amplifier circuits. The schools weren't teaching it. There weren't any books teaching it. So I formed a 2-day workshop to teach technicians how to troubleshoot op-amp circuits. And when I was in 1980, I'm now in my early 40s. And by the way, I'd had 4 major businesses in the 70s. All of them went under financially. I even went busted myself financially in the 70s. By the way, never bothered me. Every failure led to a new success. Every failure led to a new success. I've learned a long time ago, you take the good and the bad, and it all goes together, ups and downs, roller coaster. Anyway, I formed a new company called Hayne Industrial Training, to go teach technicians and to teach them how to troubleshoot op-amps. And it was all practical math now. What I teach today in practical math, that's what I needed. First year, I did $35,000 in sales. I had to deliver it. And I went out and delivered it at hotels and so on. It cost me about $20,000 just direct costs. So I made $15,000 for my family and I to live on, and we lived on it. You know, there's ways to live pretty economically if you have to. You can live a good life without a lot of money if you do it right. Cook at home, cook good, wholesome food, play with the family, but don't spend money. Don't go to restaurants and don't go out and spend. You can live pretty frugally. My next year did a little better, did $60,000 in sales. My number one competitor was General Electric, Cincinnati, Ohio. They had a training company. Everybody said, well, you can't compete with GE. You're this little one-man company. The difference was I was teaching my students the math they needed to troubleshoot op-amps. I would teach them just enough math to do it. You have to know some math to do it. You can't do it without math. Well, anyway, that was Hayne Training. Then I hired a guy to help me start selling it, and we grew and grew and grew. And by the year 2000, 20 years later, we did $3 million in sales, and I was making $500,000 a year in profit. This was our cup I have, our 25th reunion, Hayne Training. I ended up with about 30 instructors. We had training for technicians. Our customers were the military and then major big companies. After the military, we did utilities, we did steel companies, we did the big 3 auto, and we trained thousands of technicians. And here was the key to our success. Oh, by the way, GE went out of business, training. The reason we succeeded, we taught them practical math they needed to do it. You can't do technical things without the right adequate math. And we would teach them just enough practical math to do it. And they go, why didn't someone teach me this 20 years ago? Well, the schools didn't teach it. Even that was way back then. Now, this was before we had the modern technology we've got today. I couldn't have done triad math back then. I taught it. We taught it in the classroom. We'd have 12 people in, students, and we'd teach them the math they needed. Hain Training became a very successful company. 25 years, we did it. So if you want to know applications of it, it's phenomenal. Now, STEM's a whole other subject. I taught at engineering school, Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology in Terre Haute, 4 years. The subject that flunked out more students than anything else was integral calculus. Because in integral calculus, if you know calculus, you're given a function, you want to know the area under its curve, you got to find its antiderivative. Hard to do, very difficult. And sometimes you can't even find it, it doesn't even exist. And more students, I struggled with it when I was a student. Most people, if they've taken calculus, integral calculus, will tell you how hard it was. And that was using the manual tools that our ancestors developed. Now, in 2009, Wolfram Alpha came out. It does it all for you automatically. So it does for you for calculus what the smartphone does for you for all the things you do on your smartphone. Just think of that. How would your life be today? I'm sure if you're watching this, you've got a smartphone. I use an Android. Most of my family uses iPhones. I use an Android. I use it all the time. I can do things on this Android now that I couldn't have done otherwise. I don't have to go to the library. I mean, look up things. So, well, that's what Wolfram Alpha does. Today now, I can take a student that's interested in science and engineering, STEM they call it, and in my tiers 4, 5, and 6, I teach them that math with Wolfram Alpha. They can go, well, James Dewey went to the Air Force Academy. He'd been through all 6 tiers, and they couldn't believe how much math he knew. How'd you learn all that math? Well, triad math. And so if you want to know professionals, it's the upper tiers. So the first 2 tiers get you ready for the workforce, the technical workforce. Tier 3 gets you ready to take the SAT and the ACT. They're horrible exams, but I get you ready for them. I teach you some math you'll never use, but you need it for the exams. But it's nowhere near enough for science and engineering, for STEM. So you take tier 3. If you're not going into STEM, you're done. In fact, take the first 2 tiers. If you're not going to go to college, you probably don't need more math. Tier 3 gets you ready for college. Tiers 4, 5, and 6 get you ready for science and engineering in ways that there's no math program today I know that does it. Show me a math textbook that teaches calculus and differential equations using Wolfram Alpha. If there is one, I never heard of it. And that's the way to do it. Now, that's going to all kind of happen eventually, but that's today. So those are just some examples. There are, and there's lots of other examples. I've got probably 100 stories I could tell you about people that took my math program and then it empowered them to do something. I told you about Margie Abbott's son in another video. So there's lots and lots of examples of it. But the most important example will be you. You take the practical math and you're now ready for the technical workforce. If you don't want to go to college, you want to go to college, take tier 3, get ready for college. If you want to go into science and engineering, take the upper 3 tiers. Oh my golly. And you can start, if you're say 12 or 13 years old, a student is, they can be through all 6 tiers by the time they're 17. If they want to go that far, they don't have to. They can stop wherever they're ready to stop. So that's what this is all about. Many, many real world problems it takes math to solve them. And obviously that's true, science and engineering, but it's also in a technical world. I might also say that part of what you're doing when you learn math, you're learning to learn. And today with modern technologies coming on all the time, you have to learn new technology, learn to learn. So not only do you need to learn math, you need to learn. And that's part of what you do when you take my math program. You're learning to learn as well as learning math. So that's what that's all about. I think enough said on that. And I've got one more video to do before I lose my voice today that I will do. And I'm trying to get down here so I can stop this video. I'm back here now. And I'm getting ready to stop the recording. So thank you very much for watching this. I've got one more to go that in a certain sense is the most exciting one for me because it's like, what do I think the future is going to be and what can happen and so on. And I think you might enjoy watching it. So I'll see you on the last video. Bye-bye.